It's great to finally be able to say this, but hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, Grant Goodwin in studio for our first off-season episode of Sideline to Sideline, brought to you by SI Design and Printing, right here on the S2S Sports Network, part of L4 Media. I'm not going to lie, dude. It was so crazy whenever all this was happening because, and I think people always forget this about us. First off, how are you doing?
I'm well.
You're doing really good. You have lost a lot of weight, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Man, you've been working out.
Yeah. Oh, the roids. You're trying to trying to become the home run leader this year for the Rangers.
That's right. Do I look intimidating?
Yeah, you look very. Actually, I kind of like the haircut. You almost look like a.
Yeah, that's on accident.
What
I
happened?
told the lady that I needed a number 3 on the side.
She
in
did
the
a
back, and she says it's a number 3.
That was a 1.
Looks like chemo right through here. It's all kind of patchy.
I know with the hair, that's a 1 she did you with right there. She did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But she swears it was a 3. But by the time she made one pass, I'm like, well, what do you do?
I almost was going to say you look like a 1950s football coach.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
All you need is the shorts above your stomach and then holding the ball out. Speaking of coaches, that's kind of what this episode is going to be about today. We're just trying to get a chance to do an episode. And going back to the reason why is, seriously, people thought that like there was some big, like you're not coming along with us because you hadn't been on any of the episodes. And I've tried to explain to people that, you and I, unless it's realignment, the every other year, we usually don't do a show until like May. And usually May is just kind of like what we're doing tonight. Just hey, we just want to remind everybody we're still here. Yeah. You were in from the moment that I was talking with Brett, all that. You were just to appease, making sure everybody understands you were there the whole time. You just were doing your own thing with work and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. Just take a little break from football.
Yeah, and that's always very important. I don't think people realize you and I, for the first time this past year, actually did a bye week, and it felt really good. And it was funny because it was just because I was sick. And so I didn't really get to enjoy it because I was sick, but it was nice just to kind of have a week off to where you just go, okay, we're going to do all the other shows, but sideline to sideline, we're just, there's not a lot of games going on, so we'll just take a break.
Yeah, and was able to just go to a game, pick a game, and go to during the bye week, not having to worry,
about talking about it and all that
kind
fun
of
stuff.
Nice, yeah.
So what we're going to do tonight, first off, though, we want to thank our title sponsor, and that's SI Design and Printing. You can find them on Facebook. Just type in SI Design and Print. You can also give them a call, 254-405-9492. Kyle Robart's amazing work he does. Used to be the SID at Baylor. He was actually the SID for the women's sports basketball, and that's when Mulkey was there winning national championships. And he started this as a side business, and this year he decided he wanted to get back into doing it full time. And we reached out to him, and he's like, yes, we want to, I want to be a title sponsor. We had him last week. You can check out that audio here on this website. And by the way, you can check out the video because that's right. We now, if you're watching this, you know this, and you can tell Grant's still getting used to it. I'm still getting used to it, but I've done it a couple times. Me and Noe have already had a couple episodes. It's a little different, but if you are watching on YouTube, L4 Media, you can tell that we're doing video, and you can see the banner that Kyle did for us. That's absolutely wonderful. Beautiful work. Here it is on the video when I first got it. I mean, this dude, I went to New Orleans 2 weeks ago. And so we were talking the Wednesday before I left, and I was giving him the design stuff. And by Monday it was FedEx was delivering it as we were pulling up for New Orleans. And I mean, as you were talking about, the quality on it is just absolutely wonderful. He does, all sports stuff, of course, and we talked with him about that. Like, again, Grant can't see the video right now. We're going to fix that here before the season starts. But he did Sabine Cardinals wraps on their doors, wraps in their office, and things like that. But he also works with non-sports. He did a real big thing for Central National Bank in Waco. That's on the screen right now. There is some other stuff that he's done. So check out Kyle and SI Design and Printing. Again, 254-405-9492. Find him online at sidesign.net. Find him on Twitter, SI Design Print. Find him on Instagram with the same name, SI Design Print. And they're going to be our title sponsor for all 3 of our shows. And I guess that's the first thing that we can go ahead and talk about is you and I have made the decision that we're going to do a 2A show full-time this year. And part of that is, unfortunately, we're not going to do KETR anymore, just because of the time. And honestly, I kind of felt like we've probably reached our scope that we were going to get new people from KETR. We've been doing that for, I guess last year was our 10th year, I think we started in 2013.
2 years in studio.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 2 years in studio and then the rest. And we've had a blast. And I still might do something if I can find time to help out the guys there, because that's where I went to school. So I always feel, kind of beholden to them. But we also decided that you and I won't be doing any of the ISD shows. If we're going to get a coach, if we don't get a coach, I'll figure something else out. Those were fun. But again, I don't think people realize how long these shows take in season. And out of season too, but especially in season, because it takes us an hour per class, and that's leaving a lot on the table. That's just trying to pick.
And that's before, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
The scores, scores, gathering scores.
Yeah.
Who stood out, whose arrow is up, whose arrow is down based on what they did, rather than just getting a score. Well, I'm going to tell you, in 4A, 3A, and especially 2A, that information can be hard to come by.
Yeah, it really is.
To just dig around and find info about one game.
Well, and that's why I was going to go ahead and say we don't really know if the 2A show is going to be completely like the 4A and 3A show to begin. We just got to see what we can find information-wise. And on that note, and there's a lot of running jokes, and we have fun with it too, about the certain schools we cover, and we only cover a certain amount. Well, partially, we've always said we're a state show, so we try to keep our thumb on the pulse of what the state schools are. But also, usually when you're state ranked, you can find information about you. And if you have a program that you want to send information on, send it to us. We have a new email. Grant got it set up this past week. Grant and Terry at s2ssport.com. Basically the same, but just with a different URL at the end. And send us our stuff. Now, we got to learn to trust you first. We don't send us that y'all are the most spectacular team and you had the greatest game ever and then y'all lost 64-0. We want real. We need people that are able to say, hey, my team sucked, and this is why we sucked, and stuff like that. In saying that, we also don't want the opposite where you say, oh, our team sucked, and then we look at the score and y'all won 84-7. So if you send stuff and we don't necessarily right away, that's usually because we're fact-checking your stuff to make sure that what you're sending us makes sense to what we're seeing and what other coaches are saying. And speaking of all the people that have sent for us before, if you're listening, that's the new email you'll send. Unfortunately, when we left the other one, I didn't think about getting all the contacts from that. I'm going to ask Chris and see if he'll send it to us, but I think he's already changed out that email. So if it bounces back and you're listening to an episode, just, again, our new email is grantandterry at s2ssport.com. All right. So let's go ahead and get into what we want to do tonight. And honestly, it's called just filling content, but we did think it'd be kind of interesting because it does feel like, and I know there's a ton of coaching moves every year, but it does feel like there's a lot more impactful coaching moves this year than there has been, especially in a non-realignment year. Usually the big moves come at realignment as schools go up and schools go down and stuff. And I don't know, I just felt that, and we'll go ahead and start, we'll kind of start out of order because we were going to start 4A and work our way down. But today, a big move came as Ponder hires former Humble head coach Marcus Schultz. He'll take over for Kyle Cooper. Kyle Cooper, of course, went to become LaGrange's head coach. And yeah, we've had a relationship with Marcus Schultz, and that helps. We did a Splendora coaches show for a couple years, but also he wins when even at Humble, his first year at Humble was 2-8 in 2021. Last year in a tough district that has all the big boys down in Houston, he got them to go to 5-5 and miss the playoffs by one game. But when he was at Splendora, he took them to their first playoff win, took them to the longest that he was ever going to be. I think this is a wonderful hire by Ponder.
Yeah, I do too. Ponder's been, a fairly new football program, but they've been very salty basketball wise. So they've got the athletes there. Situation seems eerily similar to a Brock situation, right?
Yeah.
Crum and both Ponder. And I think, Ponder's just been waiting to get the right guy in there. Marcus Schultz can be intense, and I think that's what a program like Ponder needs. Younger guys that haven't been around the game as much as far as an organized capacity. And I think a guy like Coach Schultz will just do wonders at Ponder.
Yeah, and he is a Sanger native. I didn't even know this, and you and I'll be the first to admit, We're not real big. Like I don't follow coaching changes. I mean, unless they're impactful. Like I don't like Matt Stepp does a wonderful job of doing their coaches changes every year. He has the step bomb, and that's just never been my big thing. And I didn't realize that when Sanger hired Chad Rogers, which I think is a really good hire. Chad Rogers, of course, most famous for when he was at Snyder and the run he had.
Denison after that, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And but he
overall great guy.
Yeah, overall great guy. And this wasn't a knock on him, but a lot of people in Sanger were kind of angry that Schultz didn't the hometown boy. Now I will say, as a guy that his hometown did the hometown thing a few years ago. And it didn't fail, but it's not always guaranteed. Like that doesn't mean
it fails more often than not. Well, I say fail.
It doesn't reach expectations.
Yeah, it doesn't pan out like you thought more often than not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And so I don't know if it's a bad hire, good hire, but anyway, Ponder just being right down the road, it does feel like there's a little bit of okay, let's just see what happens, and there's nothing wrong with that. Schultz played football at Austin College. He was on the Gainesville team, not the one that won state, but the one that finished runner-up the very next year. Yeah,
okay.
He was second. I didn't either. He was secondary coach then. Then he was on staff at Sanger for a couple years, and then he was at Andrews and Hillsboro. And so when he went to Splendora in 2014,
how did he make it out of Hillsboro?
Yeah, no doubt, man.
It's been better lately, but
yeah, but. I mean, that's relative to what they were. It's, right. It's not like they've been better, like, went from 0-10 to 10-2. They went from 0-10 to 4-6. Yeah. But hey, it's better. But yeah, and when he went to Splendora, that was going across state for him. And so this brings him back home. We will be talking to Coach Schultz, or I will be talking to Coach Schultz later on this week. And we've already confirmed him and we will be doing a Ponder ISD football show this year. And so that's not just because of that, but I do think that's a big move. I think Ponder's a team in an area that if they have good coaching, they seem to be successful, but they haven't. I mean, they've only been around. First off, it's weird that they've only been around 13 years. It feels like they've been around forever, but they haven't.
Didn't they have a really good quarterback a few years ago?
Just last year, actually. I'm trying to think of his name.
Threw for almost
Clifton
2,000
Cooper.
yards.
Yeah, Clifton Cooper.
Yeah.
But he's gone, but they have Case Peacock and Mitchell Newizard back. Both of them had over 15, or one of them had 1,500 yards. The other one had 1,100 yards. They had a combined 163 catches and 30 touchdowns. So they're going to need to find a quarterback for that, but it does help when you have two wide receivers like that. And Coach Schultz, he does run an offense that whatever he has, his offense can fit to that. I remember one of the years in Splendora, he threw the ball more, but then that guy graduated, and they had a really good running back the year that they went a couple rounds deep, and so they ran the ball more. So they can diversify their offense inside that scheme, which is, I think, most coaches are doing now. And speaking of, let's go ahead and go to that one. El Campo. Chad Worrell leaves. He's headed to Burleson, a 5A school. And I honestly think El Campo hit it out of the park with who they hired to replace him in Travis Reeve.
Yeah, man, Travis Reeve, at Cuero for a while, right? So he knows the culture of the kids down there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, El Campo and Cuero are, very close geographically, same type kids. So, yeah, I think Coach Reeve would do wonders down there.
Yeah, and you look at, and I'll be honest, and I've talked to this, and I've said this to Chad, him going to El Campo always felt weird to me. I know that they had Reuben Owens, but they had set out at the beginning of that coaching hire, they wanted to diversify their offense because that's kind of been the one knock on El Campo. And they ended up going with a guy that's still going to run the ball. And they had success under Coach Worrell, but they didn't really get to go any further than they've been going. Mm-hmm. I think Travis Reeve and how he will diversify that offense. Now, of course, when you get some of those El Campo pitchers starting to throw the football, but you're going to get the offense diversified. Now, in saying that, El Campo fan base has got to have patience, and that's not something you flip overnight.
No.
I mean, unless you've got a stud quarterback that's already on the books, and they might. They had a real good, I can't think of his name right now. They have a really good freshman or sophomore quarterback, but he still mainly was a running quarterback.
I don't think their problem was offensively last year. I think
they're big.
I don't think the defense, I want to say, needs to be overhauled, but there's a lot of spots or room for improvement on the defensive side of the ball. Could you imagine if El Campo had a defense that was up to par, say, to what the offense was? They'd have been pretty tough. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, that's what killed them. Well, I say that. I mean, they held Kilgore to 28 points.
Yeah, but Kilgore's style of offense kind of lends
exactly, and I don't think that
lower scoring doesn't mean their offense wasn't potent. It just they just got points at a slower clip.
Yeah.
I think just because of the style of their offense.
Well, and also because who they were in district with Lindale and Chapel Hill, your choices are to try to outscore them or try to throttle back and keep them off the board. It never felt like that Brock Salina defensive style ever got comfortable in El Campo. They just never felt comfortable in those 2 years. You would see games where they would have big moments, but at the end of the day, even when in year one, when they won a couple playoff games, they were winning playoff games 60-58 and that type of stuff. And it just never felt like it.
Probably a lot of techniques and formations in that defense that is not real natural to what those kids have been playing before.
Well, you know? It's funny you say that because I can remember Coach Worrell talking about that in between season 1 and season 2. And he said, the weirdest thing is you would think you're telling your boys, hey, we're going to be aggressive, read, write, and go. But they've grown up in a let's keep things in front of us, let's play zone, let's play save.
Be on your heels instead of charging forward. Yeah.
And you would think that would be, just turn the Bulls loose. He said, but it's hard to just turn that switch on. Oh, yeah. If they're not used to doing that, they're always self-doubting themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a lot of the problems on the defense. And then you got them, like at the end of season 1, they were starting to get used to it, and they had to replace like 6 or 7 guys. Mm-hmm. And that, it just never worked. And so anyway, I think El Campo just had an absolute home run of a hire. I also think Henderson had a home run of a hire.
Yeah.
Clay Baker, he went to Henderson. He was the head coach at Price Carlisle. And just like we said about Chad, now Chad was successful at El Campo, but Othell Robinson, that just was not a good fit. And you don't know that until you hire the guy and they actually start coaching. Sure. Othell Robinson's a great coach, but he just, I hate to say it, but there's a certain style that works at certain towns, and I think Coach Baker at Henderson, I think he is going, and we will be having an
Carlisle's been pretty salty over the past few years. So
and it felt like they were
after years of being almost a doormat, and Carlisle, 10 years, maybe 8 to 10, something like that, has been pretty salty.
Yeah, that they used to be a laughing stock, and then they had a run in the early 2000s, but they had some coaching that was a little interesting. I just think that I really felt that if he'd have stayed at Price Carlisle, I think a state championship run was in the future. Now, that could still happen, but I do think for Henderson, I don't know if you could have hired any better. Just as far as, and he's going to know the system. Mm-hmm. We'll go with Alice right now because we're going to talk more about that later. But Kyle Atwood leaves Alice to go to Holiday. I think that's the more important, or not more important, but I think that's the bigger thing. Give Holiday credit. They felt that once Coach Frank Johnson was retiring, they wanted to completely try something different.
Do you know where that came from with Holiday going after him? I mean, that just geographically seems so
weird.
Is there a connection there with Holiday?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I'll ask some of the guys. Holiday, we had a Holiday ISD show last year. We're looking to this year. I don't know if there was a connection because I think you and I said that to you when I emailed you. I'm like, that comes out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, but at Alice, he had very solid seasons. He led them to a regional semifinal a couple years ago. Last year or 2 years ago, he had a great quarterback. He got, and then they got another quarterback, but they ended up losing in the first round in a shootout. I don't know. It's an interesting hire. He has to have some connection. And sorry, we didn't do that much research. Again, we're not that big into the coaching changes. There has to be a connection because if not, that's a different style of coaching. Yeah. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but Scott Ford, who was at Elysian Fields, he's from East Texas, but he spent a lot of time down there. In fact, he was the Hidalgo head coach, and he was a couple others. And then he went back up to East Texas, and he said in a couple interviews, it's not a knock, it's just different.
Yeah.
What one region of the state, whatever motivates them doesn't always motivate everybody. And so this is one of those, I think it's just going to be an absolute interesting thing to follow. And like I said, it's going to be fun following it, doing it in a coaching show. Taylor hired somebody, but I didn't see who it was. I'm just seeing that now. Viter, this is an interesting one.
DeBose, right?
Yeah, Dwayne DeBose is now the head coach.
Great hire, by the way.
Great hire because unlike El Campo and unlike Holiday, Viter wanted to continue what they do, and that's the slot T. And, of course, Jeff Matthews, he's one of those. He was there for 24 years. He was 117 and 124 at thing, but he was in an area that always just had really tough districts.
Yeah.
His best season was 2011 when they were 10-3. I think it's a brilliant hire bringing in DeBose. He was the head coach at Bridge City and Hardin Jefferson. And again, mainly just because keeping that slot T was very important to them.
Yeah.
So outside of, hiring somebody from Liberty Hill, I don't know if you can get any better than that. Let's see here. I'm just trying to. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, mainly because you and I have always kind of had a soft spot for Caldwell because we always had some fans that listen and stuff, and they still do. But it feels like Caldwell's on there doing another, let's try this again. Michael Patterson was out. He went 2-18. A&M consolidated offensive coordinator Sean Witherax has been hired. This is his first head coaching job, and I don't know, can Caldwell, I mean, not that Caldwell was ever a power, but there used to be a time when 8-3 was a consistent year for them. I mean, it's been 20 years since that.
Yeah.
And
there's no reason they shouldn't be better. I mean, the growth in that area, it's kind of hitting out that way.
Yeah, but you said something once. We were talking on one of the roads, and we were talking about Allen and Plano, and you brought up a good point that Allen is starting to have what Plano is having is, it's a ton of people, but it's people that don't care about football.
Yeah.
And some of them don't care about sports at all. They care about other things. And if you look at Allen and where they've at football, and everybody wants to point at coaching, but they're struggling compared to what they normally do. I think part of that might be Caldwell. Just because you're getting new people out there, it just might not be people that are conducive to having a good football program. Or as one coach always has told me, you always, no matter what school in Texas, you have guys walk in the hallways that can play football. You just got to get them to come out.
Yeah.
All right, let's see some other ones here. Midland Greenwood, Rusty Purser, he resigned 30-16. His best year was 14-1. We were out there for a game.
Some salty teams he had, too.
Oh, yeah, playing Pleasant Grove down to the wire.
That guy leaves Greenwood as a legend in Greenwood.
Yeah, he really does.
Along with his dad, right?
Yes.
His dad, a big legend there as well.
Yeah, his dad's the one that took him to the state championship in 2004.
Right.
And I think they did a really good hire with Abilene Wiley defensive coordinator Brian Hill. He'll be the first. It'd be his first head coaching job, but he's out there. And again, that is so important to me where people get hired, and it's so fascinating. Like we talked about the Alice going to Holly. It's fascinating because I like to see how people react when they're in different regions. Mike Ludlow resigned at Robinson. He was only there for a year. The bigger point though on this is, I think Robinson hit it out of the park by hiring Little River Academy head coach Chris Lancaster. Now, we talked about, Little River Academy for the last 2 years and the resurgence they had as a program. It helped that you had a great quarterback, but I think it also helped that you had a great head coach. And I think this is a great hire by Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Because Robinson's another team that you look at them and they always look like they should be better than their record.
Yeah. And they're for several years. Well, the 1 year when they played
Liberty
Islo over at Ford Stadium,
Tommy
SMU
Allison.
for the state championship. After that, they've had some teams that seem like they should have been a lot better than what their record was, or their even their playoff run was. They one and done by district, maybe, or area
getting in some tough districts.
Yeah, but I mean, it just seems like they've maybe, I'm not going to say underperformed, but they seem like they should have been better. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. All right, so here, I should have put this one with Caldwell, but here's two of these that partly because we talked about one, or actually both of them so much on KTR, but also because at one time both of these programs were proudly really solid. Wills Point, Tommy Pointner has parted ways after 3 seasons. He went 1-9 last year. They gave the job to James Boxley, who was interim head coach, so he was on staff. And then Bonham, now this is surprising to me. Bonham actually had a guy, Kyle DeZern, who had been there for 4 years. That's got to be the longest run of a Bonham coach in 10 years. And he had a really good, remember in 2021, they had a playoff run. But they hire special teams coordinator, quarterback coach, and baseball coach John Ramsey.
Well, he's going to be busy.
I'm assuming he's going to stay the baseball coach. So, yeah, exactly.
Throw girls soccer in there, too, and keep you at the field house 24/7.
Hallettsville, Tommy Pesnick resigns. 13 years, a great run, 9 wins or
great
more.
Great guy, but his wife was the nicest lady in the world. She always, whenever we were at a Hallettsville game, she would make a beeline over to us and just talk to us and welcome us, and I'm gonna miss her.
Yeah,
she was awesome.
It was funny. I got an email from them in the middle of the season about like, why are y'all doing this East Bernard ISD or the East Bernard ISD show, and why haven't you done Hallettsville and all that? And I'm like, well, you got to give me time. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. But they hire Levi Montgomery, a great hire. He was an assistant coach for Cuero. And I know he head coached somewhere else. I can't think of off the top of my head, but I think keeping it into that region, because the region's a big theme. But like you talked about, Coach Reeve at going to El Campo, especially down in that area, you got to know what you have, and you got to know what other teams have, and I just think that's really, really important as far as that. Speaking of Little Rivers, we talked about Lancaster. Mark Mullins, their offensive coordinator, is who's taking over for Lancaster. I think that's a good hire. Little River Academy has made their hay the last couple of years on offense. I know they lose their quarterback, but I think they have two good receivers coming back, and so I think it was important to keep their in line going and not trying to look too far outside the program. All right, here's one I don't understand, and I'm not knocking. And again, when we say these things, we're just purely talking about head coach and jobs and everything. Lorena, of course, Ray Biles announced his retirement, 31 seasons, led them to a state championship.
Well, I'll tell you what, Biles is leaving behind a very, very good team for the 2023-2024 season, because Lorena is going to be loaded this year.
And you and I didn't realize how young they really, really were until we went and watched the game that they lost to Columbus in the playoffs. They hired Kevin Johnson. Now, Kevin Johnson was a head coach all the way back in 04 to 08 at Waco Connolly, where he went 29-25. He was an assistant under Ray Biles, and he was until hired here as he was the Lorena High School principal. Mm-hmm. I don't know that. I wonder if that was something that they all wanted behind the scenes, or because you feel like if that job would have been truly announced. We just saw, like Marcus Schultz, coaches have no problem going down if they feel like they're going to get. And I think even now more, I think we're getting back to, and this is hot take number one for 2013. I think with the instability of coaching and teaching and the world and the economy, I think more and more coaches are going, you know what? 4A and 3A, I can make enough money and I can sit there and win and be there for 25 years and just do my thing. And I don't have to go up to 6A. I don't have to go up to South Lake or Allen or anything like that.
And you don't have to live in a hot mess of a big suburb somewhere.
Yes.
For the most part. Some places you do if you're doing 4A and even 3A, but they're not typically your overcrowded Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio suburbs.
Which you and I are living more and more to where it's just, it's funny. I always joked about where I'm from. I love it, but I'd never come back.
Because you're getting old.
Yeah, I'm getting old. I don't know if I wouldn't mind sitting out on the
crowds,
porch.
man, now.
Oh, big crowds. And
that's why I couldn't believe you went to Taylor Swift show.
Oh, man, what? There we go.
What?
No, I did. 3 days, 200,000 people, dude.
No, that's crazy.
$600
a pop.
$600 a pop, and they say if you like her music, they say she's awesome online. So in live. So I don't know. So
you did not go?
No, I was. Okay. I spent all my money in New Orleans. I'll tell you what, New Orleans is the busiest place I've been since COVID, and I didn't really think about it until getting into some of those bars to listen to music. And then, you're on your phone. You
must have been way too sober then if you were thinking about that.
Well, that's why I got the orange freeze, diesel fuel. No, I was at the moment, but I'm just saying, you look up, you're sitting there and you go into a building, you're waiting for the music, and you're on your phone and you're talking, then you just also look up and you realize you're elbow to elbow with everybody.
Yeah.
And then somebody's throwing up on the side, and then you go, New Orleans.
It's kind of like a trip with me during the season.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. But yeah, it was nice. But anyway, we talked about Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
So here's a weird little thing. Brad Willard resigns from Mount Vernon to be the offensive coordinator at Tyler Legacy. They hire Plano offensive coordinator Clayton George, who spent 1 year as the head coach at Tyler Legacy.
Yeah.
This is an interesting move. This is one of those that I'll admit, I kind of thought Mount Vernon liked the Art Briles tree and would stick with that. And maybe it's just coincidence, or maybe this was a chance that they felt like, okay, we can now cut ourselves out from that and do our own thing. But man,
Well, they've got the facilities now, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's some very nice facilities. I know, they're one of the only stadiums that still have a grass field,
Yes.
but the turf is nice, right? But, I think personally I would like more grass fields.
I think
out
we
there.
might start seeing some go back to that.
Maybe so, but I know their indoor facilities were nice.
Yes.
Their new field house was nice.
You have a rabid fan base now.
Yeah, you do, and you got kids that now want to be, grow up and be Tigers. Maybe that was something they were missing. So I think Mount Vernon is at that point in their program where their next hire was very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
I agree.
And I think they got a guy who is not a neophyte.
Yeah.
He knows how to delegate. He knows how to make those decisions on Friday night. I think this is a great hire for Mount Vernon. And let's be honest, they needed to make that the right hire to keep this program going in the direction it's going.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, now they're losing a lot, but they have a lot coming back. This year is going to be really important to see if they keep that momentum going. But it was kind of we have a couple Mount Vernon people, and they thought that was going to be more of an inside hire, and then it just didn't happen. Here's another interesting one, and this is an interesting one because just 5 years ago this team was winning state. Rockdale. Hunter Hamrick is now the new head coach. He was at Ingleside. He was also the offensive coordinator at Rockdale in 2014 and 2015. He wasn't a part of the state championship teams, but he had to have helped with the foundation laying for that quarterback. I can't think of that quarterback's name now, but that whole offensive system. And so it just goes to show you how quick things can change in 5 years. Rockdale won a state championship, and last year they were 3-7.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always joke, you don't talk too much crap when you win state, because I'm more interested in, the one-offs are great, but I want to see what a program does, and if they lay that foundation, they win state, or is that just a class that's leaving, and that was special. And that's something we'll find out about Mount Vernon, too. That's kind of the thing I'm curious about.
Yeah.
I thought Troy had a great hire, as they bring in former Cameron Yo head coach Tommy Brashear. Some people would say that he was unsuccessful at Cameron Yo. No, he wasn't.
I thought he had great years.
Yeah, we saw them when they throttled Dieball. That was one of the biggest
he had big shoes to fill, right?
Yeah. Well, and then he came back. So.
Right. And then, the other guy put the other shoes on. But, he did. He had, Brashear had, big shoes to fill. You take him and hire him somewhere else, and he has the years that he had at Cameron, they'd take that every time.
They're naming a field after him later on. And I think he'll do good at Troy, because we've seen Troy, when Troy has the coaching that fits the talent, Troy can be special.
Yeah.
And
they had some dudes a few years ago, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Running back and some physical players.
And we're going to be saying this over and over this year and into realignment, because remember, realignments next year is that area down there is just exploding. Yeah. Troy and those schools aren't just hiring for their 3A years. They're hiring for their 4A, 5A, because that's where they're all going to be eventually.
Yeah.
White Oak, Mike Ludlow is the new head coach. Again, we talked about him. He was at Robinson. He was also Grand Saline's head coach as Chris Iskey steps down after 9 seasons. He was a fun watch. We had a nice little, about 2016? We had a nice little thing with White Oak and Harmony. Boy, if you'd have told me back then that Harmony would have been the team that has now went the furthest between those two in the last 7 to 8 years, I'd have thought you were crazy, because it seemed like Harmony at that time was set up for a nice 1 year, and White Oak was set up for a long term, and it turned out to be the exact opposite.
Yeah, boy, look out for Harmony this coming year, right?
If they can build off of that, dude, those were all sophomores and juniors, man. Now losing Boston Scott's going to matter. He was the catapult to them.
I thought he was a junior.
Oh, is he a junior too?
Yeah, a sophomore or junior. He might have been just a sophomore, man.
I haven't even, man. It's been too early to start.
Back. He's back.
Oh well, then definitely watch out for them. DeKalb, I never thought we'd talk DeKalb. Buddy Griffin though retires. That's just interesting because 21 seasons he was at Somerville, Waco Conley, Jefferson, Italy, and twice was at DeKalb. And in both times he basically took DeKalb as high as they've ever been. Like second round. They hired Troy Zenrig, who was the defensive coordinator. I think that's a good hire for them. I think that's gonna, it's gonna be interesting if they can stay, or if they were just because they had a really good running back, and is that something they can build off of? Holiday we talked a little bit about, but let's go ahead and talk about that. Frank Johnson retires after 21 years. He has a record of 170 and 79, but that doesn't even speak to how good of a coach he was.
Right.
He literally had, in my opinion, the last 2 years, the second or third best team in the division. The problem was Gunner was the team you had, and it just, you can coach all you want. And I remember him talking about that. He goes, I can have all the motivations, I can come out with all the schemes, but at the end of the day, if their guys are just faster and quicker than my guys when it matters, in today's football, you're not going to beat them. And
at any time
in
football.
Yeah, at any time in football, but especially now, because I think you could, back in the day, if you kept the team inside the hash marks, you could be successful. If you faced off a fast offense, if you could defensive end could set the edge and force them inside. Now though, because everybody's spread out, even if you do that, that's fine. We'll just run a wide receiver screen right behind the defensive end, and they're going to get 30 yards. So we go back to, I think that's why they hired Kyle Atwood. I mean, he's a guy who's going to throw the ball. But my question is, are they going to suddenly get faster?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
Because I think Coach Atwood's
They
going to do
had some speed last year. They had, I can't remember, 24. I can't remember his name now.
Was that Palike? They had 32 running backs. That was their biggest. That was the deepest.
That cat was pretty quick though.
Yeah, I think it was Tyrone Pulaski.
Yeah, something like that.
But that was a team that had the deepest running backs we've ever seen. But and I'm not saying that Kyle Atwood can't do it. I think he can perfectly do it. But you're still going to face the same issues when you're facing the teams that are quicker than you.
He might not come out slinging it. I mean, you go back. We had a All-American quarterback at Alice that fell into his hands last year.
Yeah,
right?
that is true. I don't really know what he did before then. I think he was more of a balanced offense. Alice is a team that until they dropped down, we really didn't see a lot of them, and that was really over the last couple of years. Here's an interesting one. Hugh Springs. Now, you and I talk about Hugh Springs all the time. We have fun talking about them and stuff. And Chris Edwards leaves after 25 years. 16 of those were the head coach. Would you have believed that in those 16 years as a head coach, 15 years they made the playoffs?
Wow. Really?
But do you ever remember Hugh Springs in that 15 years being anything in the playoffs? Did they ever even get past the second round? I don't think they did.
Yeah, I don't know. It does seem like they kind of got into playoffs when they and kind of dud it out.
Well, I think part of it is, and as much as I love the 4 teams, and I don't ever want it to go away, were they just a benefit of what the area they were in, and having a team like Ore City in your district, and DeKalb in your district, and Queen City in your district, to where, hey, if you win 2 games, you're going to make the playoffs? Because there's so many years that we felt that they were going to be way better. Yeah, that it never really happened. Right. Joshua Willis will be coming in as the head coach. I don't know him. He's the defense coordinator at San Angelo Central. I mean, that's like the case. How many times do you think defense at San Angelo Central? I'm just kidding. But I mean, seriously, all you ever heard about with them was their offense a few years ago.
6'8" receiver.
Oh my God! One of the it wasn't a 3A or 4A or 2A, but one of the most exciting games was San Angelo Central and Allen out there. Just crazy back and forth, all that kind of fun stuff. Palmer, last year they had a really good year. This is another one. Don Waddle, the head coach, he retired after 9 seasons. He was 63-34 at Palmer. I never thought Palmer had done that good. And partly because last year was the first time they'd made it to past the third round of the playoffs. Right. And now that running back returns, if I remember correctly. Blake Bose, the defensive coordinator, he is the head coach there. We're moving down now. Valley View. Valley View is one of those that they got good at the wrong time, because now they're up in 3A and they've struggled. In 2019 when they were in 2A, they made the state semifinals.
Something like that, yeah. I think it was quarterfinals or semifinals.
And then they moved up, and they had a lot of the same players, but they were just in a different area and all that. Rocky Smart's the head coach there. He used to be at Sanger, so that's going to be an interesting one. Big Sandy, we're down in 2A now. Big Sandy, Larry Mintner retired. He'd been 35 years at Big Spring. Last 14 of those were at head coach. 72-81. His best year was 9-5. That was back when Big Sandy made that surprise run to the state semifinals. Brian Pullum, who was a Big Sandy player when they made it to the state semifinals back in 04, 05. It was that year that a lot of East Texas teams made Marshall, Kilgore, and they made it and they lost in the state championship game. He's going to be the head coach. I think that's any small town like that. I think going with the alum, even though we talked about it can backfire. I think it works a lot better at the smaller towns because he kind of knows what goes on there.
Right.
Speaking of small town, and this is only interesting because Bogota Rivercrest, your favorite team, they hired Travis McClain, the offensive coordinator for Salina. Electra hired I can't think of his name now, the offensive coordinator, run coordinator for Salina. So I bring these up mainly not because of Rivercrest or Electra, but what it does to Salina, a team that's kind of, this is their last year in 4A. I think. I think they're going to be up in 5.
Like it,
yeah, it sounds like it. And if not, well, I say that, but we also have the whole thing where you have if there's going to be a 7A, that'll change things. But it just seems like Salina is in a huge transition year, and I think it almost might be the worst year to be in a transition year.
Yeah.
Because this might be their last chance to pick on and not be playing the Prospers and the Prosper Ridge and Prosper Right and Prosper Left. And you see where they're opening up, they're already doing another high school.
Prosper is.
Yeah, and so is Katy. Katy's got his new high school. I know it's not this week, just top of the thing. Let's see here. There was another one here in 2A that I thought was interesting. Ore City. We always talk about Ore City. White Oak offensive coordinator Kyle Adams. Now, we liked what he did, and we talked about White Oak. He did do well at White Oak. It's going to be interesting to see if he can get Ore City turned around or whatever you want to call it. I don't ever remember Ore City being good.
I can't either.
I don't ever, and if y'all want to email us at grantandterry at s2ssport.com and tell us the years.
At least in 20 years, I can't remember any Ore City team that at least stood out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know in 20 years. Like, I don't even remember as a kid, like, Ore City. The only thing I remember Ore City being good at was baseball. And I don't even know if that was high school. That was just more their well, we didn't play Little League. We're in East Texas, so we played Dixie League.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good there, but they were also rolled into the Dangerfield, and they were called the Steel Belt. That was just that hole where Lone Star Steel was back in the day. Basically, Lone Star Steel funded a baseball program. So that's all I know about them. Anyway, White Right, they lose their head coach, Kevin Wiggins. He went to the playoffs 3 times. I don't know what they're going to do there. They haven't named a guy. Wolf City. You and I got to follow Wolf City because of KTR. That's a program that you just feel like you just got to know you're going to be slotted, and you just try to push for as many as you can and just hope you win one of those playoff games. But Wolf City always seems to just get in a spot where there's like 3 teams better than them in those regions.
Yeah.
Even the years they were good. A couple years ago they were undefeated and state ranked, and then they got beat in the first round.
Right.
So anyway. Now that we've talked coaches, we're going to wrap up this show. Just kind of reminding everybody, first off, again, we're just doing episodes because we need episodes and to start getting them into rotation. Our websites are s2ssport.com, also s2sgrantandterry.com. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. Just type in, normal sideline to sideline or S2 Sport, excuse me. But you have to unsubscribe for the other one too. There'll be no new shows. So just unsubscribe from the old one if you're subscribed to that. Want to also kind of talk about what we're going to do in the off season, and then we'll finish out with Coach X. So all season shows, we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to do a Dave Campbell show where we just kind of pick over the magazine and kind of compare what we early think. We try not to give all of our information out, but we'll talk about what we think about them in 4A, 3A, and 2A. Then we have our Dark Horse show.
Dark Horse tiers, I think. Toughest regions, toughest districts, and I guess the season preview show.
Yeah, the Big R's preview show. Now, as you can tell, if you're on YouTube, we're in studio. We have cameras. I don't know how we're going to do the Big R's preview show. If we do it like we normally do, where we go over to your place and we eat and stuff, we might not do cameras. It might be audio only. And it also might be audio only, too, because those shows that we always tell people, we have no time limit. We're going to talk every district. Man, we're going to do 3 of those this year. That definitely might be a stay over and do the last show on the last day. So we'll figure that out. But everything else will be in studio. with cameras. We're just trying to play around with the YouTube thing. We know it's new, but we figured it, we might as well move on to it. To be honest with you, it's kind of fun. And we're going to have a blast doing that. I will be doing starting May 1st, I'm going to do a coach's interview with a 4A, 3A, or 2A coach every day. I'm literally just going to start reaching out. Hey, I want to let's get you on for 10, 15 minutes. If you're interested in us doing a ISD show for your school, if you're a coach, a booster club, or just a fan, email me, Terry@s2ssport.com, or you can email us, Grant and Terry@s2ssport.com. All right, so before we close out, we have Coach X. Oh, and speaking of, I can't really say because
he made the banner.
He made the banner. He kind of pressured me into that.
Did he?
Yeah, I didn't figure you'd do that willingly. No, heck no. But, a couple people showed up at the house. Some windows were broken. I lost a cat, and he just, I just feel kind of scared. Anyway, here we go. This is from Coach X. Oh, and so, just so you know, this is how we do this. So this is one great thing about video. This is how we do Coach X right here. He just emails it in, and we write it. Oh, wow. If you zoom in, you can see his whole name and where he coaches and where his address is. We've got time to watch that. All right, here we go. Good to be back, guys. I even got on the Sideline to Sideline banner, but only after a couple of redrafts and redesigns. I was told I was forgotten. To that I say, how can you forget Coach X? Let me ask you this. Have you ever made a PB&J without the J? That is how I see us. Terry is the peanut, Grant is the butter, and Coach X is the jelly. So next time you make that sandwich, Tear Bear, don't forget to put the jelly on there thick. Anyway, all right, now if I could change gears for a second and speak to the coaches listening out there in podcast land. All right, all coaches listen to this.
Do I get to check out of this since I'm not a coach, or do I need to listen?
Can I check out too?
Yeah, I don't.
Can we get AI to just
hear this?
See, this is one of the things before I finish him. One of the things that might be different this year with us doing video is we might actually have an in-studio producer for our Sideline to Sideline shows. Mm-hmm. I think we might force them to. That might be part of the jobs. They've got to decipher what this man says. All right, here we go. Coaches, we have an epidemic on our hands. I think we all know what I'm getting at. The use of the word bro. Come on, bro. Bro, I almost caught him, bro. I heard a kid at a track meet knock the bar off the high jump and say, I hit it with my legs, bro. To which I replied, get your bar hitting ass off the mat, bro. And then suddenly I'm the bad guy. I say if a seventh grade girl is going to say that, then I should be able to call her bro. How do we know she cried because of what I said and not because she hit the bar? I guess that's a discussion for a different show. Coaches, I call on you today to come to my aid with all dispatch and help me in eradicating the word bro. So when you see something, say something. Or I guess when you hear bro, say, hey, bro, correct the word. The correct word is dude. Dude is good. Bro is bad. Let's make that universal. Get behind me and get it going. Coach X going to give it to you, and I just did.
Whoa, hard-hitting journalism right there. He's like the Oprah Winfrey of Texas high school football.
You get a bro. You get a. Oh, he wants dude. I'm sorry.
Well,
you get it.
The tough questions.
Oh, Oprah asked the tough questions?
No, not really. No. He faces the tough issues. Then maybe right.
I just realized with AI chat being a big thing now. How do we know it's Coach X is even real anymore?
Well, that didn't sound like a perfect AI.
But maybe you
written hard.
Can you get AI that speaks dumbass and then get it to write
Somewhere
it up?
He might have it. I'm not calling him a dumbass though. He's finally back on my side. So,
well, I mean, he called you butter.
Yeah.
What if it was Butterface?
It could have been jelly or something.
Yeah, I don't know if he's thinking about the same jelly that we like. I like strawberry jelly and grape jelly.
He likes KY.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that his story with the hot dog? What was it he ate with it? Wasn't it something like that? All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Sideline to Sideline, brought to you by SI Design and Printing. Again, find them on Facebook. Just go type in SI Design Print. Give them a call. Give Kyle a call, 254-405-942. You can email them info@sidesign.net. Find them online, sidesign.net. I got to get used to saying that. SI Design Print on Instagram, SI Design Print on Twitter. Again, follow us on Twitter at Grant and Terry. Like us on Facebook. Sideline to Sideline. All that is still the same. Nothing has changed. Check out our YouTube channel, L4 Media. We have not only our shows, but we have Outdrink the Coverage and everything else that we're going to be doing video-wise. Our email again, Grant and Terry at s2ssport.com. If you have a show question, show thoughts, if you want to give us show information, if you're interested in doing advertising on our show or any of our shows, email me, Terry at s2ssport.com. So we'll probably be back, June?
Yeah, probably June, I would say, and they'll probably be a little less tame.
Yeah, well, this is just more of, again, just wanted you to get in and see the studio.
I don't want anybody to think I'm on my best behavior all of a sudden.
No. Again, it's going to be different because you're going to be able to see a lot of things that you didn't see before. And I think people will realize we are actually a little bit more tamer than what people think we are on these shows. But also, I just wanted Grant to come in, get an episode up. Like I said, starting May 1st, I'll be doing a coach's interview every day. That'll go up on the S2S Sport feed. And then Grant and I we'll be posting on Facebook and Twitter our schedule, but everything's the same. We're going to have the Dave Campbell's, the Tiers, Dark Horse, Toughest Region, Big R's preview shows. All that fun stuff will start rolling out in the summer. Until then, he's Grant Goodwin. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been the SI Design and Printing Sideline to Sideline show on the S2S Sport Network, part of L4 Media.